So I'm going to share a conflict analysis tool called the Conflict Puzzle, which we use in Mediation Northern Ireland. And this was something I came across when I was first trained about 30 years ago, and I'm still using it now. So you'll see a picture of a jigsaw puzzle. And the first piece of that jigsaw is the behaviour. So we notice that there's a conflict because the behaviour that we would normally be expecting has changed in some way. So that can be really obvious stuff, like someone is now shouting or they've gone quiet. But in the case that I want to kind of talk through with you, I'm thinking of a workplace situation where there's been tension around the priorities for a strategic plan. And so imagining our two parties, and we'll call them Angela and Ben. So from Angela's perspective, she notices that following that very tense team meeting, Ben is not talking with her directly anymore about the issues they were arguing over. And instead, everything that Ben wants, he sends as an email request. And so that's a shift. Some places do use a lot of email, but Angela is noticing is that that's not how Ben would normally be. In response, well, Angela is replying to the emails, but she's CCing their line manager because she would like him to notice how this communication has shifted. So all of that is stuff in conflict behaviour. Just something different is happening here, and it's being experienced as a manifestation of there being conflict. Angela's wondering about where this is coming from, and she has an emotional response to it. Angela has an emotional response to getting these emails from Ben. And so if she were listing those, she'd be naming anxiety, possibly frustration, and a level of annoyance. She can feel herself thinking this is not a helpful way to be addressing things, and she definitely thinks that's Ben's fault. So she's feeling pretty uncomfortable. And that's the second piece of this jigsaw. It's noticing the emotions that belong to this conflict. For the third piece of the jigsaw, if Angela were naming the issues here in this conflict, she'd be saying it's about how decisions are made as a team, and also how do we work through conflict well together without shifting to actions that may start to damage a working relationship. The final piece of the jigsaw, if we're going to really understand the dynamic here, is the relationship. So I've introduced you to Angela and Ben, and the question would be who's involved, who's impacted by this? So obviously the two of them, but you might also pay attention to the line manager, other team members, who else is impacted by this little growing conflict between them. So the who matters. And in this case, the who is work colleagues. The nature of that work also matters. So is this a colleague on which you rely for cooperative working? Or is it someone that you're more parallel to and you can actually achieve your own objectives without them? That will make a difference to how this conflict feels. Also, what is the relative power difference between these two people? So even if they are peers, rather than, for example, having a line management relationship, even as peers, there could be different forms of power showing up in their in how they relate with each other. So who's been there longest, or has expertise, or has qualifications, or alliances, or access to resources, charisma, ability to communicate and persuade. All of these are different forms of power. Just the confidence to bring those will make a difference potentially in the relative power between these two colleagues. And you also have a question of past, present, future. So what was the relationship like with Angela and Ben in the past? If it was normally actually pretty stormy, then this ends up being just another chapter, which might even be cumulative then in a series of spats between them. It's also interesting if normally they have a very good relationship, and so this might come as a big shock that something that they'd really valued and relied on, suddenly there's a fragility to it or a risk to it. There feels like there's a jeopardy. So the past will colour how folk are experiencing this particular conflict. The present also matters. So when we're thinking about the present, we're thinking about things like regularity of contact and the nature of that contact, or proximity, like do they share an office or are they remote working? All of that has an impact on how this conflict will play out. And finally, the intended future of this relationship that they have with each other. Are they imagining that they'll be working together for years to come? That might mean that there is a good reason to really invest in trying to work this through. Or maybe they already know that one of them is being transferred in a matter of weeks. So does that mean either, right, we better hurry up and get this sorted because we haven't got long, or, I can just thole this, I can just let it ride because the other person will soon be gone anyway. So why end on a potentially sour note? Accept that it's already coming to an end, and maybe this is part of our leave taking, is things start to fall apart a bit. Now we could go back round this puzzle and think of it from Ben's point of view and ask the question, well, what was Ben noticing in terms of Angela's behaviour? What did he hear her say? What did he see her do? And how is he feeling? Does he feel hurt? Does he feel angry? Is he frustrated? Is he confused? How would he name the issues? Possibly the same, but maybe there are issues that Angela isn't aware of that Ben would want to name. And would he describe the relationship in the same way that Angela does? Again, or does he have a different take on it? That is the full conflict puzzle. It's a way of taking apart a conflict, paying attention to those 4 aspects of it. When we're addressing conflict, if we just deal with conflict behaviour, we call that conflict management. So maybe the line manager notices that all this communication between Angela and Ben has now gone online into emails between them. And maybe the line manager says, actually, that's not helpful for the way this team operates. I'd prefer that you would talk directly with each other. That may be a useful enough thing to say, and it may manage the conflict and stop it escalating. However, it doesn't actually deal with the issues. It doesn't deal with the feelings, emotions attached to this, and it doesn't give them a chance to really talk about where they've got out of kilter in their relationship and how they'd like to address that. If we want to actually transform this conflict, for it to be different into the future, we need to pay attention to all 4 pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. And that's one of the things that mediation can do, or a good conflict handling process that just lets people work through the fullness of the conversation they need to have with each other in a way that is open to understanding and learning and finding a cooperative way forward. Hopefully that makes sense. And to test it, I'm suggesting you take a page and mark it into 4 pieces and have a go unpacking a conflict you have been experiencing. Not something that's deeply distressing to you, but something that mattered enough that you're going to have content as you analyse it. See, can you think through from your own perspective, first of all, what did you see or hear from the other person? It's very challenging to do that without adding layers of judgment. So to really be direct about those were the words I heard, rather than an overlay of judgment such as they were aggressive or bullying or taunting. All of those are added judgments. So try just purely to keep to what did you see, what did you hear, as if you were a camera. And then reflect on your feelings. What's the emotional life for you in this conflict? And then how would you name the issues? And then how would you describe the relationship, paying attention to things like power and the past, present and future of this, and who else is maybe impacted by the conflict beyond yourself and the other. And then you probably see this coming, but take another coloured pen and try filling it in from the perspective of the other. What would they have seen or heard from you? A leap of imagination. How do you imagine they might be feeling? If they haven't told you, this is your moment to really stretch into empathy and trying to see how it could have been landing for them. And again, a bit of imagination. Might they name other issues as also being important that need to be addressed here? And what might their take be on this relationship? Just a chance for you to really test out this model and see, does it help you to get insights into your real life experience?